You write in Finding Meaning, my experience tells me that grief may be postponed, but it can't be eradicated. I'm often talking about the importance of markers, ceremonies, and people often raise an eyebrow to me when they say, hey, I don't want to take my 12-year-old to the funeral. And I say, no, they have to go, right? Or when I say, you think you've been in a rough, abusive marriage, it's going to shock you the day your attorney sends you the paper and says it's over. Plan a small funeral. Write a letter to your 7-year-old self that says, I'm sorry that dad did that to you. When you talk about the importance of markers and of ceremony, of action towards this period at the end of a sentence?
Yeah. First of all, you mentioned kids. I have to just start with children. Mm-hmm. We are a grief illiterate world in general. Mm-hmm. We are unbelievably grief illiterate when it comes to our children. Mm-hmm. I mean, people will tell me, the other day the goldfish died and, our 6-year-old was so sad. Mm-hmm. And I go, what'd you say? And they'll go, oh, we flushed it down the toilet and we told them it swam to the ocean. And I'm like,
you just stole from them.
You missed an opportunity. Well, I don't want to inflict pain. And I went, let me tell you, you are teaching them that if you cross the street without looking, pain will happen. And you want to spare them that pain by giving them information about the experience. Your child, 100%, like the stats are in, 100% is going to go through loss this lifetime.
Correct.
They're going to go through breakups. They're going to go through stuff. They're going to go through loss. Boyfriends, girlfriends, break up with them. Stuff's going to happen. And you're not going to teach about that? You're going to skip. Well, when they're older, I'm like, what are you going to do when they're older? Sacrifice a dog?
Right.
I mean, people go, but when do I begin teaching? When the goldfish dies.
Right now.
When the neighbor dies.
Yeah.
When grandpa, that is the moment.
Yes.
Yes. When life happens is when you teach.
So I want to tell a quick story. A buddy of mine had in my life, it's been the most adjacent, horrific experience ever with loss of a child. And fast forward several years later, I've got a 4-year-old. My boy is 4 years old, and his dog dies. I took the dog. The dog was very, very sick. Took the dog to put the dog down. And they come in and they put the dog down, and I wasn't particularly close to this dog. I was just being the dad. And we were going out to his ranch. He had a ranch out in Texas. And they put the dog down, and then they take the dog. And I come to find out they take the dog and all the dogs to a local incinerator in the city, and there we go. And something didn't sit right, and I hadn't connected the dots. And so I called this buddy and said, hey, I'm at the vet. I'm putting my dog down before I come out, and I know my son and my wife are already out there. I have a weird feeling about this. Would it be weird if I brought the dog out there and me and my son buried it out at your place out in the woods? Long pause. And in his classic, very Texas rancher way, he said, if you don't take this opportunity to teach your son about loss, you are failing him as a father.
Yeah.
And, okay. And I went out there, and it was a whole rigmarole for them to let me take the dog, the dog's body. And we got out there. There was a small shovel and a big shovel that my buddy had leaned up against a tree. And then later on, maybe 2 or 3 days later, I got an email. He said, I don't believe in capturing holy moments on film, so feel free to delete this. But there is a picture, and it's off in the distance, of me and my 4-year-old digging a hole. And it's the most sacred photo I have. But more importantly than a photo is shortly thereafter, my granddad died. Shortly thereafter, my grandmother died. Shortly thereafter, the reference point for my 4-year-old to anchor himself into love and anchor himself into his own body, but also absorb loss, all came back to that goofy dog.
Yeah.
And so I thought, oh my, the greatest gift I gave my child is to be with him in that moment.
Right.
And now we can go, remember the dog? It's just like granddad.
Right.
Right? Remember the dog? That's like grandmother. Remember the dog?
Those rituals.
It's so important.
I always say when people go, I don't understand that, I'll go, think of it this way.
Mm-hmm.
When we have a birthday party, we get together, and happy birthday is another way we say, I love you. And now that grandpa's died or the dog died, we gather again at the end to say, I love you. That gathering, goodbye, is another way we say, I love you. And I'll tell you, I don't know that I've talked about this on a podcast. Just, it came up for me, so I'll say it. When my son died, my older son, Richard, I knew this was going to happen. And I have an amazing goddaughter who is the epitome of elegance. I mean, she went to school in London. She is naturally elegant in a way I will, like, when I'm with her, I'm like, which fork?
No one's
and
ever used those words to describe me.
She was always so elegant.
Yeah.
When my younger son, David, died, we're at the funeral. We're done. And all of a sudden, the cemetery folks descend with the shovels, and they're going to, pack the dirt on the grave. And of course, my older son, Richard, goes, no. That's me. He's going to do it. And then, I knew that would be him. And then, in her most gorgeous black dress, my goddaughter picked up a shovel. And I'm like, that's like a ritual that's like unforgettable.
No.
Yeah. And it's that saying goodbye. And you wouldn't think shoveling is a way to say goodbye and I love you. And one thing just to say, just since we're here, about pet loss. After David died, I don't know, probably 8-9 months later, sweet dog of 17 years.
Of course it
dies.
did. Of course.
And people want to go, well, clearly that didn't count after David's death, or which was the worst? And I'm like, folks, there is no worst in this. These are two horrible events. They're two loves. I don't need to find a hierarchy so you can organize this in your brain. Right. These are horrible events. A divorce is a horrible event for the person getting divorced. Betrayal is, pet loss is. If the grief is real, if the love is real, the grief is real. There is no hierarchy in loss. Let that go.
Oh, man. And we could go down a whole route. Thank you for sharing that. Sure. There's, I think that's, my personal belief is those are things that our bodies adapted over millions of years to learn how to process, and we have just outsourced all of it.
Right.
Even my grandmother's house had a room called the parlor, right? And now the Emmy van shows up, takes the body away. They take care of it. I get 30 minutes, and I get maybe an open casket, and then it's over. And all of that grief stays here. And I believe in my guts there's something about shoveling, there's something about movement, there's something about that process that we've just stolen from ourselves.
Emotions need motion.
Yeah. Oh, I like that. Say that again.
Emotions need motion.
Whew,
I'll tell you,
okay.
we feel bad every time we're giving tips. We say, you got to go walk.
Yeah.
And it's like we go, we can't recommend walking again. And then a study comes out that says how walking is so amazing. And we're like, we feel like simplistic, like for God's sakes, we can't keep saying walk.
Write a letter and go for a walk, man. Yeah.
So, but it needs, and just that, this workbook is taking the pain out of you and putting it on the paper.
Yes.
Let yourself see your pain on the paper.
How do you talk to somebody who experiences grief because they've got cancer and they're being betrayed by their own body, or they have some sort of heart challenge? They've got a child with special needs. They've got a marriage that somebody violated the marriage and they're going to work on it, but there's always going to be a sign of a crack in the foundation that you can always see the repair. How do you teach somebody to grieve something that is still present in real time? Really what we're grieving is a picture of what we wanted to be true that no longer is true.
Correct. that is really sitting with the imperfections of life.
Okay.
We wanted a perfect marriage. That's gone.
It is.
That's gone.
Right.
That's gone. Okay. And, whether there's a million analogies out there, whether it's the broken vase,
Sure.
that, the vase can be put back together, whether it's a broken bone becomes stronger after the break. This is a really hard one. Would I rather have a perfect, good marriage or a real one? And I think I opt for perfect good,
Right.
but that doesn't seem to be possible. I mean, we're all going to have,
We're going to hurt people.
listen, everyone I know struggles with something. I promise you, everyone who has the perfect marriage, there's something there.
Doesn't.
And look, it may not be the biggest infidelity, but there's something there. All relationships, it's all pretty imperfect. And when we can allow that, and it kind of goes back to, I need to keep up with the Joneses. No, you don't.
Yeah.
No, you don't. It's all kind of imperfect to begin with.
Yeah.
And so it is the experience of life. I mean, I always try to opt for authentic over good.
Yeah.
Or over great. We think
that's
we'd
truth
like
over
great.
mirage, right? Yeah.
Right. But I'd rather have something that's real. And one of the things that it's funny because it was an Oprah producer that did this for me. I used to call, you can imagine this, I used to get the pre-interview calls and they would hear me, talk to me, and then they go, thanks very much, and they would not choose me. Same producer.
Yeah.
And I remember finally saying to this producer, and she changed my life. I said, why do you never choose me? And she said to me, because you're the grief expert. And I said, I don't understand. And she goes, David, before we get to the pitch you're making, I really like you. And you don't understand. We don't want to know the grief expert. We want to sit down and have a beer with our buddy that just happens to know a lot about loss.
Yeah.
And when you can let go of the illusion that you're our expert, we'll connect with you. Oh my gosh, what a favor she did for me.
Yeah.
Because she was really saying, because I was early in my career, she was like, dude, take the suit off, let it go, just be you.
I had
And
that
that's
same
life.
gift here. Yes. Yeah. And what I found is my answers, my academies was a suit of armor.
Right.
Is the way I protected look how smart I am, look how smart I am. And one woman one time in a siding line said, you're the big brother we've never had.
Wow.
And I was like, that's the greatest compliment I've ever received in this world, right? Is I'll tell you the truth and I love you, all right? It's both and.